Oh, looks like it does. That's surprising. Progress. Oh no, I'm gonna hear myself. Okay, there we go. Oh no, this is ads. Is nobody on the nobody watching? Gonna wait for people to file in, I guess. Hello, Extreme 2K6. Did manage to read that. I should probably uh, get the gain up on the mic a bit. Actually, wait, no, not gain up. The slider's low there. Well, that didn't help at all, did it? Audio. What can I do about that? Okay, so how many people... Wait. Twitch. How many people do we have? Okay, well, that's not being particularly helpful. I don't really want to jump into this until I know there's, like, you know, a decent number of people watching. Otherwise, everybody's just going to have to rely on the... this one will get uploaded to YouTube. And the goal is to keep it under an hour, so we're going to be finishing at 10:50 by the looks of it. So, yeah. And I've also decided that... yeah, damn it, get affiliate. The whole point of these stupid Q&A streams is to get affiliate. They're basically stat padding for Twitch. Um... Anyway, what did I want? Right. I wanted to get to the dashboard so I could see how many people are watching. Because well, the other thing doesn't seem to be working particularly well. It says 0 viewers. How very useful. 16. Okay, well, that's a bit better. Uploaded to YouTube, right? Good night then. You do realize this is a Q&A stream, so it's like for people to ask questions. Anyway, so, well, okay. Let's see. I've also decided that not only will I use these for like Q&As, I'm also just going to do some random news items and channel updates and stuff, so... Yeah, channel update time, I guess, because ultimately I guess most people will just end up watching this on YouTube. Which I wonder why there's not more people. I would have honestly expected there to be more viewers, considering that I've had a bit more success in the past, I guess. Anyway, so let's get on with the channel news. So first of all, this doesn't work anymore. I don't know why. Well, no, I have a theory as to why, but it doesn't work. So, well, basically, this acts like there's no GPU plugged into the system. It still pulls power, it has all the rails, it has all the voltages. It doesn't work, though. And talking to Vincent about, like, the history of this card... he baked this thing back to life. The GTX 480 part of this. He baked it back to life at 185 degrees centigrade for 15 minutes. I don't know how long ago. So my theory is that the constant unmounting and remounting of the LN2 pot, and then the heating, you know, the heating of the PCB from the soldering, and then cooling again, and then just generally manipulating the card, has basically busted the flip chip ball grid array again. So, yeah, because this thing already evidently has a history of having a problem with the FCBGA, so that's actually the connection between the silicon and the substrate. This thing has a history of that connection already failing, because, newsflash for those unaware, lead-free solder really doesn't reflow at 185 degrees centigrade. So if you hit a GPU that's dead, if you put it in an oven and you run it at 185, and that oven is actually giving you 185 and not overshooting, you're not reflowing anything. But if the card starts working again, that basically means you've managed to thermally shock the connection between the actual GPU core and the substrate that it's on back into position. and it'll work for a bit, or maybe a long time, but really kind of iffy. In some cases, the repair can last like an hour before it falls apart again, so yeah, not great. So that seems to have resurfaced on this card because it evidently had it before. And now it doesn't work again. So I'm not really sure what I'll do about that. I don't currently have a heat gun. I'm not putting this in the oven with this and that attached. So yeah, and I don't really feel like taking them off. So this might just sit on my desk until I get a heat gun. Or I might decide to just scrap it. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. What's more unfortunate, though, is this thing. This thing has decided to stop working also, for no apparent reason. And this was really annoying because I was testing the GTX 480, right? And the GTX 480 isn't working, so I go to grab another graphics card to check if maybe the motherboard hasn't managed to die. So I grab this thing, and this thing isn't working. So at that point, I'm like, there's no way this is also dead. So, you know, and then I go through like three different motherboards with various issues. There was actually like, and I also tried the GTX 590. The GTX 590 does work, but there's a really weird quirk with the GTX 590. If you don't disable all the, well, no, not all, but there's like some power saving setting on Intel motherboards, which if you don't disable, it's going to hang loading into Windows. So I basically had, like, I've spent the last few hours basically just troubleshooting 2 different motherboards, 3 different GPUs, and just, yeah, hell on earth. This doesn't work either. This might be bakeable back to life. This might be possible to bake back to life. I'm not 100% certain because I have no idea really what's wrong with it. Well, this still gets all its voltages, it just doesn't put out a display output, though, interestingly enough, the monitor does respond to it. So it's putting out some kind of signal, it's just not very useful. Yeah, and then finally, behind me on the test bench right here is the R9 290X. The new R9 290X, the one that was supposed to replace the one that died. That's currently artifacting, and if you install drivers, it black screens. Not my bloody fault. Stuff just likes dying in my hands. So, yeah. Everything has just gone and blown its own brains out. So that's bloody perfect. So, yeah, I've had a great last few... Basically, what day is it today? Today's Wednesday, right? And I built the GTX 480 Saturday. So since Sunday, I've been on and off troubleshooting all of this stuff, which is why I've not managed to do anything else, because I'm so preoccupied with none of this garbage working now that it's just like, yeah, that's bloody great. But now that I know everything doesn't work, I guess I'll put it on a pile on the desk to get, like, heat gunned one day and work on something else. So, yeah, that's great. That's freaking perfect. Yeah. I didn't do anything to your 290X. Your 290X seems to have been on the way out because it just artifacts all the time. And the worst part is it lived in the same drawer as the GTX 590, and the GTX 590 is perfectly fine. So it's not the storage area. I was like, maybe... Nah, the 590 is fine. The 290X, for whatever reason, isn't. You can't even install drivers on that. So, let's run a Kickstarter for BuildZoid's heat gun. Oh, man. Yeah, so that's a whole lot of bad news. Mass die-off of GPUs, basically. And the only good thing is I still have more GPUs. Hopefully those aren't dead. I mean, you know, there's still a whole pile of Fiji cards. Well, there's 3 of those. There's 2 Vegas. Those still work. There's a 960 somewhere in these boxes. There's a 7970. That still works. The 7990 hopefully still works. I've not checked that thing since the LN2 session. And with my current luck, I'm like, I don't even want to... I'm kind of considering not testing it. Because it's just like, if that dies now, then I'm going to go die. Anyway, so, yeah. That's been that's been a great few days. You know, testing all this junk to find out it doesn't work. There is good news, though, not related to all the GPUs. The Evga X299 Dark is actually shipping. It's currently in the UK, according to the tracking number I have. For some reason, they decided not to put it, not to bring it to my door today. Even though it seems to be at the final distribution facility already. But yeah, I'm not sure where that is. I should be getting it very, very, very soon. Because it's in the UK. It's like basically the largest town, city in relation to me. That's where it's located. So I don't know why it isn't here today already, because according to the tracking, it turned up at 5 in the morning. So they could have delivered it today, but yeah. That is definitely going to be, that should be turning up very, very soon. And I can't wait to test that motherboard. That thing's going to be, I can't wait to test it. Like, seriously, that looks like one hell of a motherboard. It nails, well, no, it still doesn't nail everything I want for X299, but I think I might have a nicer, I'm not sure. I'm inclined to believe that I might have a nicer experience with it than with the OC formula, because there's a lot of things on the OC formula that, like, the postcode's in the wrong freaking place. And that's actually been really getting on my nerves recently, because it's like I go to do things and it's like, where's the postcode? Right, it's under a graphics card because some idiot put it at the bottom of the motherboard. But yeah, so the Dark doesn't have that, and it also has some really cool overclocking features, so I will try to cover those. Unfortunately, the PCB breakdown and a whole bunch of overclocking content for that motherboard, well, unfortunately for you guys, well, actually, who is this unfortunate for? I guess for, like, the strength of the channel. Because ultimately I get paid for this a lot more than YouTube does than if it goes on my channel. Basically, the PCB breakdown for that motherboard, possibly some overclocking guide stuff, I'm not sure yet. That'll all be going up on the Gamers Nexus channel. On my channel, there will be an unboxing video, because there's a whole bunch of accessories that I know the board comes with, which I think are super cool, and we should check out. I can do a very general overview without talking about how the VRM is and that, because I can't, like, if I'm doing a PCB breakdown for Gamers Nexus, I can't actually do the same content for myself. That's part of the agreement, and Gamers Nexus is the reason why I'm getting the board, so yeah, they're going to get a bunch of videos out of it. I'm hopefully going to get a bunch of videos out of it. Even better than a bunch of videos out of it would be if the board is better than the OCF and I never need to use the OC formula again. Because there's still just, the Dark looks like, just looks like it has more polish on it. Even if I'm not sure if that'll translate into better overclocking, because you can polish the physical aspect of a motherboard and maybe even UI aspect of a motherboard to, like, to perfection, and it's not going to make it any better at booting 4000 CL12. But Lumi, who's the #1 Finnish overclocker, has an X299 Dark, and he's had awesome success with it. So I'm hoping that I can, that it'll be as good or better than the OC formula to work with, because he's had, awesome memory overclocking results on it. And with the OC formula, I've been getting kind of meh results, so we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. It might turn out that I suck at RAM overclocking so badly that it'll just end up being the same as the OC formula, just without the stupidly positioned postcode, which is still a win. So, yeah. So I guess let's get into the questions. Starting with, what's up with the idea of getting another AM4 motherboard? What idea? Right, right, I probably mentioned that I want to get another AM4 motherboard sometime. Basically, the Taichi sucks for LN2 overclocking, and just really any kind of extreme overclocking, because that board cannot train, I might give it one more chance, but basically that board doesn't seem to be capable of training RAM above 1.6 volts. So it's completely bloody useless, because I can't, if I take that Gigabyte board, which now lives in my daily system for not being good enough, if I take that board and I try to like, well, if I try to match any of the memory settings that board does with the Taichi, it's impossible. Like, it's straight up impossible. I can't get even close. So I really, like, I want to get rid of the Taichi and get a real proper overclocking motherboard for AM4. The Taichi's fine for a daily system, but I'd never ever, like, the experience I've had with it, like, trying to go cold on LN2 is just, like, it sucks. So that's why I basically want to get a different AM4 board. So, yeah. What else was there? Yeah, somebody mentioned, hello, I've got a bunch of cheap X79 EVGA I can buy near me. Are they worth it, or are they as bad as I read? The X79 Dark, I've heard was really, like, was good. Okay, I don't know what that means, because as far as I'm concerned, the only motherboard on X79 that was good was the Rampage 4 Extreme, and then the Rampage 4 Extreme Black Edition, which was basically just a, you know, reskin of the Rampage 4 Extreme with some extra features tacked on. So, yeah, the X79 Dark was apparently a strong motherboard, but the other ones they're apparently pretty bad. So, yeah. Also, about the AM4 boards, at this point, I've kind of decided I'm just going to wait for the release of X47. It doesn't make sense for me to go and, like, rush out and buy an X370 motherboard right now, because X47 is coming so soon. And I'd like to at least, like, I'd like to, for once, have a relevant motherboard in the time period that it's relevant. With a CPU for it, which I'll have because I have a Ryzen 7 1700 still left over. So, yeah. Somebody asked if I will be overclocking 775 or 771 CPUs in the future. I have a friend who like does a ton. Well, actually, Lumi does a ton of 775. Kichi Papuches does a ton of 775. Both of these are like overclockers from the Alza OC team. I don't do 775. It's too old. I don't know what, like, the problem is like, I tend to, like, hardware that I somewhat know by name from just what I used to build, like, when I was building stuff, that seems pretty relevant to me. And I can sort of get around, like, older graphics cards because they're not that different. But then you go like, oh, yeah, LGA 775, and I'm just like, I don't know anything about it. So, yeah. Maybe when I run out of other old junk to overclock, I'll end up on 775. But for now, it's not really a priority. So, yeah. Why won't AMD let the new Vega APUs crossfire with Vega 56? They missed a huge opportunity. So asymmetrical crossfire does work, but I think that would be so asymmetrical that basically you would have, like, if they turned off frame pacing, you would get something like the Vega 56 spits out a frame, the Vega 56 spits out another frame, the Vega 50 spits out, the big Vega spits out yet another frame, then your APU puts out a frame that started rendering, like, ages ago. So you get this weird stuttery crap that you'd end up with. So, yeah, it would just be a nightmare to synchronize. Like, I really, like, unless they could somehow predict the future of what's going to be in that, like, the frame in 4 frames, yeah, that would not work. Any thoughts or insights on 2nd gen Ryzen? So I think around this time last year, I actually knew how Ryzen, like the 1st gen Ryzens would overclock. Right now I don't know anything. I'm just hopeful that they improve memory overclocking and fix all the issues with going on LN2. Yeah, just better clocks, you know. It could be like, if Ryzen 2 somehow manages to hit like 6 gigahertz on liquid nitrogen, which, again, that might be really hopeful, but who knows? Maybe Glowflow, by messing around with the 14 nanometer Samsung process and making it 12 nanometer, Maybe they broke it, like made it act something like some of their past processes where you put the LN2 on it and it just clocks like crazy. Or maybe they didn't, and it's just Ryzen but with 10% higher clocks or 7% higher clocks. I really don't know what to think there. So, yeah. So that's that's kind of that. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I honestly think if well, it might be even competitive in the benchmarking scene again, which would be neat. Especially if they fix all the LN2 issues, it might be good for 3D or something like that. In the, like, if they do a Threadripper, which they will do a Threadripper. They'll definitely do another Threadripper generation. Which, if they do a 12-core or 16-core Threadripper and they fix all the LN2 issues, that would be a great 3D Mark platform on, like, the cheap. You know, if you don't want to pay for a 7980XE, that could be a really good 3D platform if it doesn't have all of the issues that the current generation has, where it's like, oh, you go, like, I'm not sure if it's been fixed or if it's changed. Again, because I don't have any good LN2 motherboards, my experience with Ryzen on LN2 is terrible, like absolutely terrible, because there's just settings that are missing. And my experience was that below -50, you couldn't do anything with the GPU, and at -50, you couldn't really do anything with the CPU or RAM. So you were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, where you go below -50 and the CPU might improve, but the GPU stops working because the SoC gets too cold. Or you go above -50 and the memory controller and the CPU clock like garbage because it's too warm, and the GPU works. So you're kind of like, yeah, it didn't really work out. If they can solve that, if they make Ryzen 2 run full pot for 3D, I'll be super impressed. Like, that would be really awesome, because that would make the 3D benching for, like, on Threadripper super, like, it would be potentially very lazy to bench, because you could literally just fill it up and let it go and not worry about temperature, which with X299, it's a workout. Like, well, even X99 is a workout. You constantly have to, like, control the temperature. And X299 makes that even worse because you got a million freaking cores spewing a ton of heat. So, yeah. Anyway, let's get through some more comments. Still kind of sad that back in the day I was able to get 775. Is a delidded 7820X binned for 4.8 gigahertz, 1.22 volts processor, plus an Asus Rampage 6 Extreme worth €900. I wouldn't get the Rampage 6 Extreme. Why? Like, do you need the 8 memory slots? That's like my main concern. Do you need 8 memory slots? Because if you don't need 8 memory slots, just get like well, it's not even the memory slots. It's just the what does Asus want to sell the Rampage 6 Extreme with? I'm really confused now, because it used to be, if you bought the Extreme board, right, that was the old, like, the Extreme board had all the Extreme overclocker goodies. That's why it was called the Extreme. And they usually had actually pretty terrible audio circuits built in. Like, it was actually worse audio than what you got on the Formula. In many cases. Eventually that kind of changed, and now it's this ridiculous water cooling monstrosity. And I'm going to say, if you don't want the ridiculous water cooling monstrosity, don't get the Extreme. Like, it costs way too much. It will overclocking wise, it'll be worse than an Apex, just because it's an 8 DIMM, and also because it's not targeted at overclocking as hard as the Apex is. So, yeah. Oh, it's for the OLED screen. Doesn't that just work like a glorified postcode and temperature readout? I really don't see the, like, seriously, it's just, I don't see the appeal. Like, in the past, the Extreme kind of makes sense. Now, the Extreme is kind of just like, well, it's blinged out, and that's about it. Somebody asked, a question for you. Do you think it would be cool if NVIDIA made a sort of unlocked version of their top-tier cards? And I mean at unlock, I mean like how Intel have a K-SKU chip, well, okay, so here's the problem. They'd also need to make them on PCBs that don't suck. And, you know, like, I think what happened is with Nvidia's decision to like lock down their GPUs as hard as they have, is because once upon a time they made this. This blows up very, very quickly if you try to overclock it. It used to have when it first launched, this used to have power slider options. It used to have voltage slider options. Those all got removed in driver updates because if you actually used the power slider and increased the power limit and used the voltage slider and increased the voltage, this would blow phases. So yeah, and Nvidia has a history of making similar-ish GPU manufacturing PCB decisions with other cards as well. Like the GTX 680, that PCB is garbage. That would blow up on about 1.4, 1.45, and that's still very coolable on that card. So basically, if Nvidia sold like a reference Kingpin edition, sure, but they're not gonna do that. So that's kind of the problem I see with that. So, yeah. So, Nicole has been banned. Oh man. Well, that was predictable. Anyway, what do you think about the X99 Rampage 10th edition? Oh, right, the edition 10. That is probably I never used one. I used a Rampage 5 Extreme, and those boards were kinda prone to some issues. Okay? Some Rampage 5 Extremes were great, some were absolutely terrible, some were like mine and mass murderers of CPUs. But the Edition 10 fixed most of that. Well, actually, no, the Edition 10 like fixed all of that. And it's just generally a really good all-rounder X99 board. But I'm not sure if it would necessarily give you an advantage over, say, something like an SoC Champ. Well, hard to say. I mean, depends on what it's priced at, right? If you're paying like full price for it, I'd consider something like a SoC Champion, or I really like the X99A X Power from MSI. I love that board. Yeah, I really like that board. I've had great experience with it. Yeah, that's kind of that. So SoC Champion, X Power, Rampage, like basically just choose by price point. If there's something you specifically want about the Edition 10, it's a good board. It's just expensive. So yeah. Should I wait for second gen Threadripper? How soon are the releases? I have no idea. I'm hoping not too long after Ryzen 2000, Ryzen second gen. So somebody asked, how is the GTX 480 doing? It's temporarily out of commission until I either like heat gun it or figure out what to do with it, because it does not work currently, and it probably has I just watched the video on YouTube if you want to know that, because I covered that in the beginning. MSI plus good board. The last good board MSI made was the X99A X Power. Like, the MSI has this interesting history with their motherboard manufacturing. Like, for example, the Z87 M Power and X Power are notorious for being absolutely terrible. Well, not absolutely terrible, but not very good. Like, there's a lot of Z87 boards and Z9, like, just there's a lot of boards that are much better. But then they did the Z97 M Power and X Power, and those were actually really solid. Much better than the Z87 versions. Because basically they built the Z87 versions, those sucked, they figured out why they sucked, and then they built the Z97s, and those were good. And similarly, and on X99, you have the X99S boards, and those are all terrible because they don't have OC sockets. But then you have the X99A series, and especially like the X Power, I love it. It's awesome. It's an awesome board. You know, and it does have a kind of long post time, but I do really like that board. And then all the newer MSI boards have just been like, because basically what the problem is, MSI has pretty much given up on extreme overclocking, so they don't really care about making motherboards with more than just gamer appeal. which gamer appeal means you smack RGB on it and a million phases, because if it's got a million phases, it's got to be good. So, yeah, which MSI always put a million phases on everything. The only company to put more phases on a motherboard than MSI is Gigabyte. Gigabyte went all the way to like 32 phases on one of their boards. MSI stopped at like 20 something. So yeah, that's kind of that. Have I tried to bake the GTX 480 yet? No, it still has the power board attached. I'm not baking the power boards with it. So I need to pull those off. And actually, I'm thinking just heat gunning the core directly would be easier than tearing it apart. X99S boards are just bad. All of them. All of them. They don't have OC sockets. If you want to overclock, don't get them. If you just want to run a daily system, then sure, whatever. But I think you could just get away with a cheaper board. MSI didn't put many phases on the... You do have a point there. The X370X power is such a letdown. That thing is depressing. Like, that's legitimately depressing. Because MSI, like, even when they didn't have great boards in terms of, like, overclocking capability, they've never made something that bad. Except maybe AM3 Plus. Yeah, AM3 Plus was that bad. Was worse, probably. There was one comment I remember seeing before that I wanted to comment on. Have you had a chance to look at any Z370 motherboards yet? Seem to default to the Z370A because it's one of the cheapest boards with a 10-phase VRM, and I'd be interested to know how it stands up to other 10-phase VRMs. So, I've still not done anything. Well, I've done a PCB breakdown for Gamers Nexus, and I have some rough power draw numbers for Coffee Lake from Gamers Nexus, but I don't I've not seen a Coffee Lake in person yet. And unfortunately, I decided to go and spend a chunk of the budget on yet another i3 7350K. So, yeah. Great business decision right there. The thing is, I have a project that needs a CPU, and I already have a motherboard for these. And the i3 7350K I already have was not that great, so I figured I'd get a second one, and whichever one of them is worse is going to go into the junk build that needs to just have a CPU and an ITX motherboard. And the other one I'm just going to use for smashing, picking up some hardware points and just use it for benchmarking because, yeah, hopefully this isn't worse than my other one. If it's worse than my other one, then I've really screwed up. So, yeah, but this was on discount. But, yeah, I've not seen anything, I've not seen a Coffee Lake chip in person. I've not really looked at the motherboards much. So, yeah. The P55UD7 was 24 phases. Look up the Z77X-UP7. That was a 32-phase V-core, and I think a 3-phase iGPU, 2-phase system agent, 2-phase I/O. Like, that board is more like the entire budget of making that board just went into VRM components. Literally, they just burnt everything on VRM components. Oh, and it still had a PLX chip. That thing was badass. Not actually a great, it wasn't particularly good for, memory overclocking, but it was, just because of the VRM, I consider it an extremely badass board, because that VRM is insane. So, yeah. So, I've been having issues pushing higher OC on my 1600 on the gaming K5, partially due to the lack of LLC. Have you been having similar issues? Well, yeah, the lack of LLC is annoying. I would not consider that a serious overclocking board. That's why it's in my daily system. Because it does 3.88 gigahertz for me at, what is it? Well, not a lot of voltage, and it's stable, so... That's kind of that. Yeah, don't do vote spam. And heat gunning it on stream, it'll just be me pointing the heat gun at it. There's not much to that. And plus, I've never heat gunned a GPU in the past, so that's a good way to kill it. Max VDDCI on a 390X, don't go over 1.15. Actually, probably don't go over 1.1. But definitely don't go over 1.15. The memory controller, like VDDCI, is a great way to blow up the memory controller. I think from like 1.25 volts up, it's pretty much instant to death. So yeah, that's a pretty like basically a lot of these memory controller voltages are very touchy in the sense that you push them a little bit too high and your memory controller is gone in seconds. Like you can literally just try to boot and it's gone. So yeah. The Asus Strix X399E Gaming STR4 AMD. So the Strix X399E board is actually pretty good. I know somebody who has that board. He's he's an overclocker on HWBot. His nickname is speed.fastest. He's been putting down some really impressive results with that motherboard. Also, I know for a fact that that board uses the exact same VRM setup as what you get on the Zenith Extreme. The only things that you lose are the Zenith Extreme has a few LN2 toggles and switches and buttons. The Strix doesn't have any of them. I'll see if I can pull up some of those scores here and just drop them in the chat. Wait, globals. Did find one. Oops. I still don't know how to use HWBot, evidently. Yeah, and he's gotten like, oh man, you're gonna love that memory speed. He's gotten beast memory speed on that thing. Actually, wait, I'll try pull that up. Right, we're gonna try do this again, so I need to quickly, I'm gonna pull up the results he has with that board. Come on. Wait, what's that? No. Bam. Okay. Hide that. So, let's see. How do I put it in studio mode? And scribble vids. Yay. Okay. Where is it? Threadripper. 17 submissions. Let's see if that works. Oh, that did work. Perfect. So, how do I do this? Right. Transition. There we go. So Threadripper, he has SuperPi 32 million. So this should be a beast memory test. Yeah, so he's doing like 1800 and he's doing 3600. No, that's like 3700 CL12, 1124. Yeah, like absolutely beast memory overclock. His TRC is surprisingly high. I wonder if he bothered minimizing that. Because I know on Intel you don't generally deal with the TRC setting at all. I don't think it's even there. But yeah, so really like memory overclocking wise, the board is definitely capable if you have a capable memory kit. Where do we have? Well, let's just do 3D Mark 11. Yeah, and again, just really beast memory settings. It looks like he has all of those configured the same, so let's pull up a different one. There. Yeah, and this one's even higher memory clock than the others. This is 1932. So, yeah, the board's definitely the board's definitely capable. The VRM is literally the same thing as the Zenith. The cooling might be a bit worse for the VRM. Like, I'm not sure, because the Zenith hides a little fan inside the Zenith hides a fan inside the what's it called? IO shield, and I don't think the Strix board has that. But yeah, it's capable. It's definitely capable. So, weird, in Wattman it says 1.2 volts VDDCI. Wait a minute. Okay, so give me a second. I'm gonna just catch up on 1.43 volts for a 390X on core is not good for extended, like, it's fine if you're benchmarking, it's not good for extended lifetime. If you're going to use that card for a long time, that's probably going to degrade the core. I'd generally recommend you stop around 1.35 volts, even with like water cooling. And with water cooling, you might be able to push it between 1.35, 1.4 ish, but yeah, it's just like it's pretty risky. For benchmarking, you can definitely crank it that high. I wouldn't run it that high daily. What else was there? Right, I just covered the Strix. Just asking, should I get an AX X370 Gaming K5 or K7? Don't want to overclock Ryzen 5, but do want to keep 3200 megahertz RAM. If the Gaming 5, the regular Gaming 5 isn't... try, like, depending on how the prices are. So K7 costs the most. The Gaming 5 is basically a K7 without the BCLK, so you get a significant VRM upgrade there. It'll have LLC. It'll have all the sort of voltage settings that most people require. And it still has good memory support. You just don't have BCLK control. The K5 has BCLK control, but you sacrifice VRM capability for it. And you lose LLC. So, yeah, but it sounds like you don't really want to overclock. The main thing there, I think, honestly, just downcost the board and hunt down a 3200 CL14 kit. And if you already have a budget for this 3200 CL14 B die, then just pick whatever, like, get the Gaming 5 or something, well, honestly, like, pick your own poison. I'm really indecisive. Don't ask me for specific recommendations like that. What's your favorite movie? I don't watch that many movies. So I don't have an answer. Because I don't really remember that many movies either. I mean, there's like, I enjoy a lot of movies, but it's not like I have any one that I would like say you must see this. Like, this is the best thing ever. You have to see this. So, yeah. Yeah, also 775 MSI boards are terrible. Yeah, well, MSI also made some really bad boards in the past. Like, you know, most of the board manufacturers have their ups and downs, which is why when anybody says, what is your favorite motherboard manufacturer, what my favorite motherboard manufacturer is, my response is that I hate all of them equally, because they all eventually put out some... Like, they've either put out or will put out garbage. Or they're currently putting out garbage. Because they just, like, it, you know, it's just priorities change depending on what currently dictates sales. And the end result is that some generations you just have absolutely awful motherboards. From basically everyone. So, somebody asked, what do you think about the power stages on the Gigabyte Z390? Pretty sure you mean the Z370, because I know that one uses the same power stages. So the ISL 99227BFRZ... so the 992227s are awesome. Okay, they are by far the best power stage in the 60 amp power category, and I don't think they... Like, I know Fairchild has these monstrous 70 amp power stages, but in the 60 amp power stage category, those are the best. Literally the best, okay? The X299 Dark motherboard uses them for vCore, the OCF uses them for vCore, the XE edition of the Gigabyte 7, like, Gigabyte made a revision of one of their X299 boards again on these power stages, because these things are awesome. And they're basically the only way to handle Skylake X properly, because these are basically server parts that motherboard vendors are now using for desktop boards, because it's just like there's nothing efficient enough. And those things cost like $5.50 a piece. And that's when you're buying them bulk, direct from Intersil. So, well, not direct from Intersil, but if you're buying them bulk, you're paying like $5 plus a piece for these. These are awesome, okay? And really expensive. So you have like a lot of motherboards, like say the EVGA X299 Dark or the OC Formula, there's like $60 worth of just MOSFETs on there. More than that. So because of these power stages, and they are really, really nice. So best power stage ever. Well, best currently available power stage. What else is there? Bought a 4790K recently, which overheated instantly on 2 cores, and now with liquid metal it sits at 60. Okay, just asking, should I... Okay, I've covered that. Wonder what kind of voltage he runs for such high memory clocks on TR4. Somebody asked about the X399 Strix board again and the ridiculous memory settings. Those are probably done on around 1.85 volts or 1.9 volts. I think his memory, he has a really nice kit of B die. So yeah, it should be around 1.85, 1.9 volts. Somewhere in that range. Is the Evga X299 Dark worth the extra 180 euro over the FTWK X299? I would, honestly, I have no idea. Though I have heard that the X299 Dark has a whole lot of secret, like super secret special sauce that the other boards up from EVGA don't get. And if you're serious about overclocking your memory, get the Dark. If you just want a daily system, you can probably get away with the FTWK, but I would recommend you just pick up some other motherboard manufacturer completely, because EVGA's mainline boards tend to kind of not be awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I've not used the board myself, and I'd hate to judge it based on speculation and history, because that's not always reliable. Buildzoid, there's no overclocking. Yeah, no overclocking movie. Hope this isn't a dumb question. 980 Ti died on me, and I got a CEX refund, so I got like 280 quid. What would you do? Well, I want to buy a 4820K, and I know they sell those at CEX. I want to buy a 49. Well, no, I want to buy a Ivy Bridge E. They sell those at CEX. I'd pick up a whole bunch of random graphics cards with the rest of the budget. Maybe some FX stuff just to try more 8 gigahertz attempts, or maybe Phenom 2s. I'm not really sure. Like, there's always just junk I want to buy that CEX has, so non-issue for me there. What else is there? How much of a role does sock voltage play for Ryzen Memo? See, my E-die won't go over 2933 CL16 1531T at 1.1 volts sock. Your TRP and your TRCD are too low for E-die. Like, E-die, the way E-die is supposed to time is that your CL is way lower than your TRCD and your TRP. So like if you go like at the extreme end, if you're doing like 4000 megahertz, you can do like CL12 with enough voltage. And by enough voltage, I mean a lot of voltage, like 2 volts. At the extreme end, you're going to end up at like CL12, 4000 megahertz, but with like TRP and TRCD of 20. So for like, if you want to go to like 3200, I would recommend you loosen it out to like 16, 17, 17, give it 1.45 volts. And actually you could probably do like 15, 16, 16 or 15, 17, 17 at 3200. The socket voltage, I would bump it up to 1.15 volts. Also, do you have 8 gigs, like do you have 16 gigs of memory or 8 gigs of memory? Because if you have 16 gigs of memory, that is, that puts a lot more strain on the Ryzen memory controller. So, yeah, and that would generally require more sock voltage as well. Your favorite motherboard of all time? Hard question. I don't like X99 as a platform, but I must say the X-Power was, like, I like that board. I really like that board. Like, I never felt like the board was actively getting in the way. It is a bit slow to post, but it wasn't like I was fighting it. Like some other boards, like the Apex, where it's like, I like the Apex. I really like the buttons the Apex has, but the problem is with the Apex, those buttons are so must-have because, like, if you're trying to do really hard memory settings, you're going to be sitting there going, retry, 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 retry. Oh, look, it posted. We get into Windows. Oh, it's unstable. Retry, retry, retry. Oh, now it's stable. It's just not fun. So I really like the X-Power because it doesn't do this kind of weird stuff. And the BIOS is, okay, it's not the easiest to navigate, but there's a few nice little things that MSI does for you, and it is well featured, and I just kind of generally think the board is well-rounded in its capabilities. You know, nice VRM, nice, good VRM heatsinks, like they have actual fins, and they're reasonably heavy, even if they don't get like they do have the silly plastic covers. Well, no, aluminum covers on them that block airflow, but hey, still more surface area than the modern art we get these days. Though admittedly, those were approaching modern art pretty much a lot. Um, yeah, I'm kind of yeah, because ultimately, I think where I differ from a lot of other overclockers is like some of them will just say this board is the best because it just does the best settings. And I find a lot of the time that my focus is not doing the best settings as much as it is not having to fight the motherboard to do stuff. You know, it's just like, well, if it tops out 100 megahertz lower, but it's infinitely easier to hit that 100 megahertz lower, I'll probably prefer that board. Just because it has like the capabilities. I also like when the board has like a really good feature set, and it's just the X Power has proper voltage read points. It has like everything that I kind of want from a board is kind of there. It might not be completely perfect, but it's more or less what I want. And then yeah, and then you get some other boards where it's just like, well, I can work with this. Before the X Power, I must say I really liked the Rampage 4 Extreme. That thing was absolutely beast because X79 is just so much like that platform is just generally not as silly as some of the modern stuff we have. Like some of the modern stuff is just like, especially B-Die, is just like you need a retry button because you're going to be sitting there mashing that thing all day, every day. As soon as you start doing hard memory settings, whereas on X79 it either posted or it didn't. Well, no, you could lose memory channels, but that was generally because you didn't have enough voltage and it was easy to fix. What else is there? I'll gift you my 4820K if I'll find a 1682 for €350. Thank you very much for that offer. Should I go extreme next week and do an 8G attempt on my daily system? And is so if I can... Oh, which reminds me, there was a question about a good starter pot. Oh, and also somebody asked about the Team Extreme 8-pack stuff is decent. I've used the Team Extreme non-8-pack stuff, which I get the Team Extreme non-8-pack. I'm not sure what the bidding differences are. I think, if they'll... Well, for daily, I think you're probably better off with the 8-pack stuff. For extreme overclocking, I'm not sure if there's going to be a lot of difference. Somebody said about the hair. What is CEX? CEX is a store in the UK that basically does a second-hand electronics. Really handy for picking up random garbage with warranty. That's the part I like, because there's like 2 stores down the street, basically. So, well, down the street by the bus, because it's a long street. But, yeah, you know, take a bus, and I'm at a CEX, and I can just go like, hey, yeah, this CPU I bought from you doesn't work, and they'll just instantly give me a voucher to buy more junk from CEX. So I'm very happy with that. Admittedly, you know, it'd be better if they actually gave you a proper refund, but if I'm gonna go and spend that refund on more junk anyway from the same store, works for me. Would 2400 megahertz DDR3 RAM make a noticeable difference over 1600 megahertz for gaming with Haswell? Maybe. Well, yeah, maybe. I'm going to say maybe. I'm not entirely 100% sure. Yeah, G-Skill does make a 3600 CL15 kit. G-Skill also makes a 4000 CL17 kit. And that stuff is all, like, I want that. Remember, there is still SOC Champion LN2. What do you mean SOC Champion LN2? I can't keep up with the chat, it's too fast. If you mean the SOC Champion sitting behind me and putting it on LN2, I've put it on LN2 and I used the wrong LN2 pot, which reminds me there was that question about the LN2 pots which I wanted to cover, and we only have 6 minutes here. So, LN2 pots, starter LN2 pot. That's kind of a hard question. So I'm gonna say this: I don't like the Venom if you're gonna put it on anything hot. Okay, if you take the Venom LN2 pot from Kingpin, which I have it. Wait, I'll just pick it up and show you. Oh wait, no, you have it right here. So, this is the Venom. I'm holding it kind of the wrong way around. It's rectangular, and it's a two-piece. So if you're going to run dry ice, this is pretty much no-go. Well, you can kind of make it work, because with dry ice, basically, you would just fill up all the holes with your solvent, and then you'd put dry ice in that and pray that it doesn't go over the edge of this lip. Because if it goes over the edge of this lip, you have solvent spilling onto your motherboard, and that sucks. But the problem I have with this thing is it's ridiculously fast to heat up. Not to cool down and to heat up. So, and it's really heavy. That's the other sad part about it. And I think the problem with the design here is all the holes are right in the center, and all of the mass of this LN2 pot is concentrated around the outside. So what you end up with is, well, basically this has no temperature. Like, I ran this on the 5930K. I thought I was running, like, it felt exactly the same as when I was using the Bauer Fusion on a 5960X or a 6950X, which, like, I'm pretty sure this is actually heavier than those, well, than the Fusion, but the way this is just designed, it just gets super hot, super fast. And the other issue is, because these holes are just completely separate, individually, if you give it a splash of LN2, it responds inconsistently, in my opinion. I still need to test that more, but it didn't really, like, with the Fusion, you know, I could figure out, like, a drip feed rate, and I could just hold it at that, and it was perfect. But if I tried to drip feed this, the LN2 ends up pooling in one hole, and nothing happens. Basically, the temperature doesn't change. So you need to splash it, and if you splash it, you get, like, results varying from, oh, all of the LN2 boiled off instantly, and suddenly the temperature drops 10 degrees because it just flashed into gas immediately. And sometimes it would just pool in a couple holes and get stuck there and sit there for the next several seconds, and the temperature wouldn't really go anywhere. And I find that really not... I don't like it. So I wouldn't really recommend this unless you're going for full pot platforms, because on full pot platforms, this is awesome. Like, I've definitely, for Kaby Lake, I like the way this behaves for Kaby Lake, I like. But if you're not benching Kaby Lake only, this is a disaster, in my opinion. Like, this is awful. So I think as a very general LN2 pot, I'd probably have to recommend the Bauer Fusion, which that should be relatively easy to get. I'm pretty sure they have those listed on Case King, because the Fusion, it's not super heavy, it's not super fast, it's very balanced and easy to learn. You know, even on X99, it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as this. So, it wasn't as bad as the Venom. So, yeah, I've kind of better rounded. It's probably going to end up that I'm going to run the Fusion on X299 with the Dark, and that's just going to be a disaster. But, yeah, I like that pot. I like that pot quite a bit, because it's a bit more balanced than this thing, where this thing is really just like, if you want full pot, this thing is beast. And then even if you have like a cold boot bug with a full pot CPU, the Venom, you stick a hairdryer in it, because the hairdryer just fits right into the freaking, like, it's so big, like the opening is so big, I can stick the hairdryer all the way in, and it heats up really, really quick, and it glazes really fast. So very, very quick, not very, you know, controllable. And then Kingpin does have the F1 Dark, which is very controllable, but the only reason why it's controllable is because it weighs 4 kilograms. So it takes a month to do anything with it. Like, it takes forever to cool down, it takes forever to warm up, it takes forever to do anything. So again, like, that has the exact opposite issue. I feel like the Kingpin designs don't seem to have a middle ground. It's just like, you either get the slowest LN2 pod ever or the fastest one, and it's just nothing in between. Yeah. Not a huge fan of that. Anyway, it looks like we have 40 seconds. So let's do one last question, and then we'll call that a stream. How come LN2 doesn't leak out of it? Yeah, I don't know. Magic. Like, seriously, I have no idea how the well, I guess I could try, like, fill it up all the way to full pot. Just, like, sitting on my desk and see what happens. One theory I've had is that the gap gets filled in with ice before the LN2 manages to leak out. But that doesn't, like, I don't think that actually would work, now that I think about it longer. So, yeah, I don't know how the hell LN2 stays in that thing, but it does. So, that's something. But I do know that it'll leak water, and it will leak like, it'll leak solvents. So that's why you don't want to run it on dry ice. Whereas, again, the Fusion, you can stick whatever you want down it, and it'll be fine. Wait. Can you do an LN2 OC battle with Der Bauer? That wouldn't be a battle, that would be a one-sided slaughter. And the one getting slaughtered would be me. Okay? That's just... I mean, I could be pretty fun to do that. The problem is he's super busy. Like, seriously, he is super busy. So I don't think he has the time for anything like that. I might be able to do some... I've been toying with the idea of doing, like, LN2 battles with some other overclockers, but kind of hard to coordinate and, like, figure out how to do it. So, yeah. Yeah, you need to get a 2400G and see what happens under LN2 with Mini Vega. Yeah, I really want to actually test that. It's just budget. Budget's a problem. Also, somebody suggested do like ultimate cheapest overclocked madness build for under $800 or less. That would be a good video. Make one better than Paul and Kyle. What would be the goal? Like overclocked on liquid nitrogen or dry ice or what? Or just air cooled or just water cooled? Like I'm not sure what the goal behind that is. You're gonna have to get some specifications there. Again, I'm not like you give me an open like you give me too many options and it's just not gonna go anywhere. Also, the guy who offered to make a custom base for me, I already have somebody who's offering to make LN2 pots for me. We're actually already working on like some LN2 pot designs, and they look really good on paper. Okay, I don't know how they'll perform because it's our first attempt, and we're starting with GPU pots. I'm super like right now the main problem is sourcing copper because turns out big blocks of copper in low volume cost an arm and a leg. So, yeah. Why not have an infinite loop of LN2 build? That's a good question, I think, to answer, to finish on. So, the problem with an infinite loop of LN2 is getting, like, the amount of energy you need to turn nitrogen gas into liquid nitrogen is insane. Okay, so you'd basically need like the facilities that produce liquid nitrogen in the quantities that you can buy it from them. Those are buildings. Like those are literally buildings producing liquid nitrogen, and you can buy like some smaller scale liquid nitrogen generators, but they need like huge water cooling systems to keep them running because they produce a ton of heat. They're horrifically inefficient. They run off industrial power outlets because they're like, I think they're 380 volt or something for Europe. So yeah, basically it would be very, very, very impractical. Now, if you had enough money, you could totally do it, but for the purposes of most people, it's a terrible idea. But you could totally buy a liquid nitrogen generator and have it hooked straight into a system, and it would just pump liquid nitrogen straight onto a CPU for as long as the generator keeps working. The moment that generator breaks down, you're kind of boned. You're kind of screwed. So, yeah. At Buildzoid, make a YouTube series where you recommend overclocking hardware for various price ranges. Here's the problem with that. Okay, I'll also answer that one just because it's kind of interesting. Here's the problem with that. Yeah, so yeah, 5-stage cascade, 20 kilowatts. Yeah, that's pretty much. And if you get a liquid nitrogen generator, you're looking at the same kind of issue. So also the make a YouTube series where you recommend overclocking hardware for various price ranges. Again, it's just like that is like you need to like define the range of overclocking, right? Because if you say extreme overclocking, I don't care what your price range is, you're gonna buy an Apex or you're gonna suffer. There's some alternatives there, but they're not that much cheaper than an Apex anyway, and they often are much worse. So yeah, that's kind of the problem there. It's if you get into extreme overclocking, oftentimes it's not, oh, look at all these options. It's often, this is your option. Accept it. So, yeah. Anyway, we should wrap it up here as we are now 6 minutes over. So I hope you enjoyed the Q&A. I do plan to make these regular, so every Wednesday, because I need to stat pad for my Twitch affiliate status. Twitch doesn't appreciate people with 3,000, with almost 3,000 followers, but zero, not inconsistent streams that happen like never in each month. There's like a minimum number of per month that they want. So yeah, and I'm nowhere near reaching it right now. So this is gonna snap pad that. For the time, 9 p.m. UK time is what I'm thinking of, and I'll try to keep it an hour long. Sometimes it'll be more QA, sometimes it'll be more like new hardware news or channel update, depending on what's currently going on. Basically, I just want to, have this show type option, talking head type option. Hopefully I might be able to bring on some other overclockers to, just maybe help answer questions or just talk to somebody with different experiences for me, because you may have noticed I don't know anything about NVIDIA GPUs. I don't know anything about 775, and I know how popular that is. I don't know anything about X58 either. Older graphics cards, it's like I can explore them, like I'm exploring them, but I've not really done that much on them. So yeah, I was thinking would be neat to like sort of bring in somebody else who say Lumi or Kichi Papuches or some other people over Skype, Mikolti, and just have discussions on other hardware, because there's only so much I can answer myself. So yeah. Yeah, also an overclocking podcast. We've actually done an overclocking podcast on the with OCTV in the past, with Overclocking TV, the OC show. That was an overclocking podcast. That just went down because the guy who was hosting that is way too busy. But I can host my own podcast now because I don't have any production values, so it doesn't matter that the whole hosting is garbage. So yeah. That is now definitely 110% it. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, then like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below, or any questions. Though actually, don't leave any questions. Write your question down and bring it to the next Q&A, because I'm gonna run out of content eventually for these. So yeah. Thanks for watching, and see you next time, because I've apparently not gotten any better at outros. Goodbye.